The prior Daf, Daf 87, had this whole statement that we're incredibly lenient when it comes to witnesses that come back and say that a certain woman's husband is dead. So let's say, a woman lives in Israel and her husband goes off, this is thousands of years ago, and takes a ship and goes to some foreign nation for trade or whatever, and just we don't hear from him, we don't hear from him, we don't hear from him. And all of a sudden word comes back, somebody comes back and says, I was with him at the time that he drowned. There was a battle, he was killed, there's a shipwreck and he drowned and he died. We are extremely lenient. We beyond our normal requirements for testimony with this type of testimony, because it's hard to get evidence around this. We don't want this woman to be in doubt all of her life and never able to remarry, never able to move on because there's a question mark about whether her husband's still alive. Like normally for court proceedings, we require, two men to be coming as witnesses. And this, it says that, we'll take not even two, we'll take one. And it doesn't have to be a man, it could be also a woman. It doesn't have to be a free person, it could also be a slave. There's all of these people who would not normally be testifying, whose testimony is accepted. And the requirement to have two is waived in favor of one because we don't want this woman to get stuck. But on this Daf 88 of Yevamot, we look back at that and we say, okay, but what if, the guy comes back alive? What if it turns out that there was a mistake? Well, now we've got a lot of problems. Now we've got, we had allowed this woman to get remarried based upon a pretty slim amount of evidence, much less than the courts normally require. And now that was kind of wrong. And maybe sometimes we suspect maybe it was kind of set up. Maybe she wanted to remarry and she kind of arranged somebody to come in with weak testimony. We don't know what it is exactly, but the court seems to be very strict in these circumstances in terms of considering it a case of adultery. And one of the explanations is because we were so lenient at the beginning, I guess to stop this institution from being manipulated, whatever it is, we're going to be very strict at the end. So we're making an exception to allow weaker than normal testimony at the beginning, but we're going to follow that up with a stricter than normal standard at the end. That was kind of an interesting cheshbon, interesting debate they had there. Conclusion, but how these two things fit together. You might think you're lenient at the beginning, we should be lenient all the way through, but that they go the other direction.